The alarm system in Zekthar's small trading post began making noise at the worst possible time. He was in the middle of counting his credits for the third time that morning, hoping the number would somehow be different. It was not. The Valorian trader had barely enough to pay for fuel, let alone the docking fees that were due in 2 days. He looked at the screen showing the alarm. A ship was drifting near the asteroid belt, about 20 minutes away from his station. The vessel was small and damaged. Pieces of metal were floating around it. Zekthar zoomed in with his sensors and saw the markings on the hull. Human design. He had seen a few human ships before, but not many. They were a new species in the galaxy, only recently given permission to travel beyond their home system. Most traders would ignore a damaged human ship. Humans had nothing valuable to offer. Their technology was old compared to other species. Their credits were not trusted in major trade ports. They had no powerful allies in the Galactic Council. Helping them would cost money and time with no benefit. Zekthar should ignore it. He needed every credit he had. His business was failing. The big trading companies had pushed him out of the profitable routes. He was stuck in this remote station, dealing with miners who barely had enough to buy basic supplies. His family back on Valoria depended on the money he sent home every month. Last month, he could not send anything. But something made him keep looking at the damaged ship. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was boredom. Maybe it was the memory of his father's voice, saying that honor mattered more than profit. His father had been wrong about that, Zekthar thought bitterly. Still, his fingers moved across the control panel. He activated the towing beam. The action would cost him fuel and credits he did not have. He was being stupid. But he could not seem to stop himself. The damaged human ship was smaller than he expected when he pulled it into his docking bay. The hull was burned in several places. The engine section looked like something had exploded. Zekthar ran a scan. Wal 4. Ramanau. Wal 4. One life sign inside. Still alive, but the ship's life support was failing. He put on his environment suit and entered the human vessel through the airlock. The inside was dark, except for emergency lights. Everything was built smaller than ships made for other species. Zekthar had to bend down to move through the corridors. The air smelled like burned plastic, and something else he could not identify. He found the human in the cockpit, strapped into the pilot's seat. She was alive but needed medical attention soon. He carefully unstrapped her and carried her back to his station. Humans were lighter than Valorians, which made it easier. The medical unit in his station was basic, meant for treating minor injuries. But it was designed to work with multiple species. He placed the human inside and let the machine scan her. Broken ribs, concussion, chemical burns on one arm. Nothing that would kill her if treated properly. The machine began its work. While the human was being treated, Zekthar went back to examine her ship. The damage was extensive. Pirates. Probably. He saw the marks of energy weapons on the hull. The engine core was cracked, which meant she had been lucky to drift this far without the whole ship exploding. Repairing this would cost more credits than he had. He should just stabilize the human and send a message to the nearest human outpost. Let them come get their pilot. It was the smart thing to do. The reasonable thing to do. Instead, Zekthar began ordering parts. His fingers seemed to work on their own, going through his suppliers list, finding the components needed to repair a human engine core. The prices made him feel sick. This would use up his emergency savings. The money he had been saving to pay off a loan shark who was already sending threatening messages. He worked through the night and most of the next day. The engine core was difficult to fix because human technology was different from what he was used to. Simpler in some ways, but put together in strange configurations. He had to study the ship's technical manual, which was written in 3 human languages he did not know and 1 trade language he barely understood. By the time he finished, He had spent nearly all his remaining credits. His hands were shaking from exhaustion and probably from fear of what he had just done. He had ruined himself financially to help a stranger from a species that could not even repay him properly. The human woke up while he was running final diagnostics on her ship. She appeared in the doorway of his workshop, moving slowly and carefully. The medical unit had bandaged her arm, and her ribs were wrapped. She looked at him with brown eyes that seemed too soft for a pilot who had survived a pirate attack. "You saved me," she said in trade language. Her accent was thick but understandable. "The station master said you brought me in. Fixed my ship." Zekthar nodded. He did not trust himself to speak. Now that he was faced with what he had done, the full weight of his stupidity was crushing him. "I'm Commander Sarah Chen, Earth Expeditionary Service." She moved closer, looking at her ship in the docking bay. Her eyes widened when she saw how much repair work had been done. "This must have cost you a fortune. Human tech parts are not common out here." "It was nothing." Zekthar lied. "It was not nothing." Chen looked at him directly. "Most species would have left me to drift. Some would have stripped my ship for parts. Why did you help me?" Zekthar did not have a good answer. It seemed wrong not to. Chen was quiet for a moment. Then she accessed her suit computer and transferred credits to his account. It was more than Zekthar expected, but still less than half of what he had spent. Human credits were not worth much in this sector. "I cannot accept this," he said, even though he desperately needed it. "You do not have much. Your people are still new to galactic trade. Take it anyway." Chen smiled, and it changed her whole face. "And take this too." She held out a small data chip. "My credentials and contact information. If you ever need help, any help at all, you contact me directly. Understand?" Zekthar took the chip, confused. What could one human pilot do for me? Chen's smile got bigger, like she knew a secret. "Humans remember kindness," she said. "We remember who helped us when we had nothing, and no one cared if we lived or died. You remember that, Zekthar. You remember that humans pay their debts." She left 3 hours later, after her ship's systems were fully online. Zekthar watched her vessel accelerate away from the station and disappear into faster-than-light travel. He looked at the data chip in his hand and put it in his pocket. He would probably never use it. What could humans do? They were weak and poor, just like him. He went back to his accounting program and looked at his remaining credits. Even with Chen's payment, he was still ruined. The loan shark's payment was due in 1 week. He did not have enough. Not even close. Zekthar put his head in his hands and tried not to think about what would happen when he could not pay. 3 weeks passed since Commander Chen left the station. Zekthar tried to forget about his financial problems by working harder. He took every job he could find, no matter how small or dangerous. He transported mining equipment to unstable asteroids. He carried medical supplies to stations with disease outbreaks. He even took a job hauling waste materials that most traders would refuse to touch. It was not enough. It was never enough. The loan shark's deadline came and went. Zekthar could only pay half of what he owed. He sent the credits and a message explaining that he needed more time. The response came 6 hours later. Just 2 words in trade language. Time expired. Zekthar knew what that meant. The Kresh Consortium did not accept late payments. They were not a bank or a legitimate lending company. They were criminals, with enough political connections to operate openly. Everyone knew the Kresh would send enforcers to collect debts one way or another. He tried to contact his family on Valoria to warn them, but the communication channels were blocked. The Kresh had already frozen his accounts. He felt cold fear settle into his stomach. His wife, his 2 children, his aging parents, they were all in danger because of his stupidity in helping a human stranger. The attack came on a Tuesday morning, station time. Zekthar was loading cargo when 3 ships appeared near the station. They were Kresh vessels, painted in dark red with the consortium symbol on their hulls. The station's traffic controller tried to redirect them to standard docking ports, but the Kresh ignored all protocols. They docked wherever they wanted. 12 armed Kresh soldiers marched through the station corridors toward Zekthar's bay. Other traders and station residents moved out of their way. Everyone knew not to interfere with Kresh business. Station security did not even leave their office. The Kresh commander was a tall, muscular being with gray skin and small black eyes. He wore expensive armor and carried weapons that were illegal in most systems. Behind him, his soldiers aimed their rifles at Zekthar. "You are Zekthar, debtor ID 47328?" the commander asked. "I am," Zekthar said. His voice shook. "I sent half the payment. I just need more time." 2. The time for payment has passed. The commander gestured, and 2 soldiers grabbed Zekthar's arms. "Your debt now includes penalty fees, interest, and collection costs. The total is now 4 times the original amount." 4 times. Zekthar felt his legs go weak. He could never pay that much. "Please. I have family. I can work. I can pay installments." "Your family is already being contacted," the commander said with a smile that showed too many teeth. "Your wife will be offered a payment plan. 10 years of labor should cover the debt, plus interest. 10 years. They would enslave his wife for 10 years. His children would grow up without parents. Rage and helplessness warred inside Zekthar's chest. "You cannot do that. The Galactic Council has laws against debt slavery." The commander hit him across the face. Zekthar tasted blood. "The Council does not care about small species like yours. Or did you forget? Your people have no power, no important allies. You are nothing." End quote. The soldiers forced Zekthar to his knees in front of his own ship. Other traders watched from a distance, but no one helped. No one would risk the Kresh's anger. The commander made a public announcement on the station's communication system, explaining Zekthar's debt and the punishment for non-payment. It was a warning to everyone else who might consider defaulting on Kresh loans. "Your ship is now property of the Kresh Consortium," the commander announced. "Your trading license is revoked. Your family will be contacted within 1 standard day to begin their payment plan." Zekthar closed his eyes. This was the end. Everything he had worked for, everything his father had taught him about honor and hard work, it all meant nothing. The strong crushed the weak. That was the only rule that mattered in the galaxy. Then he remembered the data chip, Chen's data chip. It was still in his pocket because he carried it everywhere out of habit. "Humans remember kindness," she had said. "Humans pay their debts." It was stupid to hope. What could one human commander do against the Kresh Consortium? What could all of humanity do? They were a minor species, with old technology and no political power. But Zekthar had nothing else left. He reached into his pocket slowly, trying not to attract attention from the soldiers. His fingers found the data chip. He had a small, portable communicator on his belt. If he could just activate the chip and send a distress signal. "What are you doing?" One soldier noticed his movement and pressed a rifle against his head. "Nothing," Zekthar said, but his fingers were already working. He slipped the chip into his communicator and pressed the emergency contact button. The device vibrated once, confirming the message was sent. Then, the soldier kicked the communicator out of his hand. "Trying to call for help?" The commander laughed. "From who? You have no friends, Valorian. No one in this entire sector cares if you live or die." Maybe that was true. Probably it was true. But Zekthar had done the only thing he could do. He had reached out to the one person in the galaxy who had said they owed him a debt. The Kresh soldiers began inventorying his ship and his belongings. They would take everything. The commander set up a temporary office right there in the docking bay, making it clear that the Kresh would stay until every credit of the debt was extracted. They brought in equipment and furniture, as if they planned to occupy the space for weeks. Hours passed. Then a full day. Zekthar sat on the floor of his own docking bay, guarded by Kresh soldiers. He was given water, but no food. The commander said food cost money, and Zekthar had no money. Other traders passed by, looking at him with pity or contempt. He was an example now. A warning. On the second day, something changed. The station's traffic control started receiving messages. A ship was requesting permission to dock. Not just any ship. A diplomatic vessel. From Earth. The Kresh commander frowned when he heard, "What would humans want here?" The docking master's voice came over the speakers. "They are requesting an emergency docking at Bay 7. They say they have business with a trader named Zekthar." The commander looked at Zekthar with suspicion. "You called humans? That was your emergency message?" Zekthar said nothing. He barely dared to hope. "Let them dock," the commander said with a laugh. "This should be entertaining. Maybe they want to beg for their friend's life." 30 minutes later, the human diplomatic ship settled into Bay 7, right next to Zekthar's captured vessel. The airlock opened, and 5 humans emerged. 4 were security personnel in light armor. The 5th was Commander Sarah Chen, now wearing a formal diplomatic uniform with insignia Zekthar did not recognize. She walked directly to the Kresh commander, ignoring the weapons pointed at her. "I am Commander Sarah Chen, Special Envoy of the Earth Diplomatic Corps. I am here regarding the debt of Zekthar, trading license Vel 47328. The Kresh commander looked her up and down. "This is consortium business, human. Your people have no authority here." Chen smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "We will see about that." Chen smiled. It was not a friendly smile. She pulled out a datapad and held it where everyone could see. As of 2 hours ago, Earth's government has purchased Zekthar's debt from the Kresh consortium in full, including all penalties and interest. The transaction was completed through the Galactic Banking Authority. The debt is now owned by Earth and is considered paid in full. The commander's face went dark. "That is impossible. We did not agree to sell the debt. Check your consortium's central office." Chen's voice was calm, but cold. "The sale was conducted at the highest level. Earth paid 3 times the current debt value. Your superiors were very happy to accept." Several tense minutes passed while the commander contacted his headquarters. Zekthar watched the commander's face change from angry to confused to worried. Finally, the commander closed his communication device. "The sale is confirmed," he said slowly. "But this changes nothing. The Valorian's ship and belongings were already seized. They are consortium property now. They are assets seized against a debt that no longer exists," Chen replied, "which makes this occupation illegal. You are now trespassing on property under Earth's protection. I suggest you leave immediately." The commander laughed, but it sounded forced. "And if we refuse? What will you do, human? Your species has no military power here. Everyone knows, humans are weak." Chen pulled out her communicator. She spoke one sentence. "Fleet, Admiral, right. You may proceed." Nothing happened for several seconds. Then every alarm in the station began screaming at once. The station's warning systems were designed to alert everyone about incoming asteroids, equipment failures, or hull breaches. Zekthar had heard them a few times before, but never like this. Every speaker in the station screamed warnings. Every screen showed flashing red alerts. The traffic controller's panicked voice came through. "Multiple vessels emerging from FTL travel. 12 signatures detected. Unknown class. They are forming combat formations around the station." Zekthar looked at the display screens mounted on the docking bay walls. His breath stopped. Ships were appearing out of faster-than-light travel all around the mining station. Not just any ships. Warships. Massive warships that made the Kresh vessels look like children's toys. Each ship was painted in dark blue with white markings. The symbol on their hulls was simple: a circle representing Earth with 12 stars around it. Human ships. 12 human warships. But they looked nothing like the small scout vessel Chen had been flying 3 weeks ago. These vessels were predators. They bristled with weapons, energy cannons, missile ports, rail guns. The humans had mounted enough firepower on each ship to destroy a small moon. Their armor plating was thick and covered with sensor arrays. They moved with perfect coordination, taking up positions that covered every possible escape route from the station. The Kresh soldiers lowered their weapons, staring at the screens in shock. One of them made a small noise that might have been fear. The commander's gray face had turned almost white. "That is impossible," the commander whispered. "Human military records show only small patrol craft and unarmed transports. These ships do not exist in our database." Chen smiled wider. "Your database is outdated." Zekthar's communicator buzzed. So did every other communicator in the docking bay. A general broadcast message, sent to all frequencies. A deep human voice spoke in trade language. "This is Fleet Admiral Marcus Wright of the Earth Space Defense Force, 3rd Expeditionary Fleet. We are here on a diplomatic mission to secure the safety of Zekthar, a friend of humanity. All Kresh Consortium vessels will power down weapons and prepare to depart this station within 15 minutes. Any act of aggression will be considered an act of war against Earth and will be answered accordingly." The 3 Kresh ships near the station were surrounded. For every Kresh vessel, there were 4 human warships pointing weapons at it. The humans had the advantage of position, firepower, and numbers. It was not even close to a fair fight. The Kresh commander turned to Chen. His confident, cruel demeanor was gone. Now he just looked scared and angry. "This is madness. Do you know what you have done? The Kresh Consortium has alliances with dozens of species. We have trade agreements with half the Galactic Council. If you attack us—" "We are not attacking anyone," Chen interrupted. "We are protecting our interests. Earth purchased Zekthar's debt legally. That makes him a person under Earth's financial protection. You are occupying his property without legal authorization. That is simple trespassing. This is not about the debt." The commander's voice rose. "This is about respect. About knowing your place in the galactic order. Humans are a minor species. You have been in space for less than 50 years. You cannot simply appear with a battle fleet and threaten established powers." "Cannot?" Chen tilted her head. "Admiral Wright, what is the status of the Kresh vessels?" The admiral's voice came back immediately. "All 3 Kresh ships have powered down their weapons. Their shields are collapsing. I am reading multiple life signs aboard all vessels, showing elevated stress responses. They are not preparing to fight." "Thank you, Admiral." Chen looked at the commander. "It seems we can do exactly what we want. The question is, what you will do. Will you leave peacefully, or do we need to escort you out by force?" The commander's jaw clenched. He looked at his soldiers, then at the screens showing the human warships. Zekthar could see the calculation happening behind his eyes. Pride versus survival. The Kresh were bullies, but they were not stupid bullies. "We will leave," the commander finally said. "But the consortium will hear about this. There will be consequences. Humans have made enemies today. We will handle the consequences," Chen said calmly. "Now, please vacate this docking bay. You have 13 minutes remaining." The Kresh soldiers began gathering their equipment. They moved quickly, almost frantically. The commander shot one last look at Zekthar, a look full of hatred and promise of future revenge, then led his troops out of the docking bay. Within 10 minutes, the 3 Kresh ships had undocked and were moving away from the station at maximum speed. The human warships tracked them with weapons, but did not fire. After the Kresh were gone, silence fell over the docking bay. Other traders and station residents slowly began approaching, staring at Zekthar and Chen with amazement and fear. No one had ever seen the Kresh Consortium retreat before. No one had ever seen them scared before. Zekthar finally found his voice. How? How did you do this? Where did those ships come from? From Earth, Chen said simply. The Admiral would like to speak with you, if you are able to come aboard our flagship. There are things you need to understand about humanity. Zekthar nodded, still in shock. Chen spoke into her communicator, and moments later, a small shuttle departed from one of the massive warships and docked at the station. The security personnel escorted Zekthar and Chen to the shuttle. Within minutes, they were flying through space toward the largest human vessel. Up close, the human flagship was even more intimidating. It was easily 3 times the size of any ship Zekthar had ever seen. The name painted on its hull read ESDF Unity in both human English and trade language. Weapon turrets tracked the shuttle as it approached, then powered down when they recognized the friendly signal. The shuttle landed in a massive hangar bay. Dozens of smaller ships were docked inside: fighters, bombers, scout vessels, transport ships. Hundreds of human crew members worked throughout the hangar, maintaining equipment and preparing for potential combat. They all wore the same dark blue uniform with the Earth symbol. They moved with discipline and purpose. Chen led Zekthar through clean, well-lit corridors. Everything was organized and efficient. Signs pointed to different sections of the ship in multiple languages. They passed crew members who nodded respectfully at Chen but looked at Zekthar with curiosity. They arrived at a briefing room where a tall human male waited. He had gray hair and wore a uniform with more insignia than Chen's. His eyes were sharp and calculating. This was clearly someone who had made difficult decisions many times. Zekthar, the man said, extending his hand in the human greeting gesture. I am Fleet Admiral Marcus Wright. It is an honor to finally meet you. Zekthar shook the Admiral's hand, still confused. Honor? I do not understand. I am nobody. Just a small trader who helped Commander Chen. Why would you send 12 warships to help me? Wright gestured to chairs around a table. They all sat. The Admiral studied Zekthar for a moment before speaking. Commander Chen filed a report about her encounter with you. That report went to Earth's High Council. They decided your actions represented something important. Something humanity values deeply. You helped one of our people when you had every reason not to. You spent money you could not afford to spend. You asked for nothing in return. Do you know how rare that is in this galaxy? Zekthar shook his head. It was just the right thing to do. Exactly, Wright said. You did it because it was right, not because it was profitable. That is why we are here. Humanity has a saying. We remember those who helped us when we had nothing. You helped us when we appeared to have nothing. When everyone else in the galaxy treated humans as insignificant. But you do not have nothing, Zekthar gestured at the ship around them. These warships, this fleet, this is more military power than most species have. Where did it all come from? The galactic records say humans only have patrol craft. Wright smiled. It was not a cruel smile like the Kresh commanders, but it had an edge to it. The records are wrong. Deliberately wrong. We made sure they were wrong. Chen leaned forward. Zekthar, we need to tell you the truth about humanity. The truth that only a few species know, and none of them are talking about. When humans first achieved faster-than-light travel 48 years ago, we were excited to join the galactic community. We thought we would find allies and friends. Instead, we found a hierarchy that judged us as weak and primitive. So we made a decision, Wright continued. We would let the galaxy think we were weak. We would appear to struggle with technology that we had already mastered. We would act like grateful children, happy to receive whatever scraps the major powers gave us. And while everyone was ignoring us, we would build our strength in secret. Zekthar's mind raced. But why? Why hide your power? Because revealing it too soon would have made us a target, Wright explained. The major powers do not like competition. If they had known we were building warships, they would have united to stop us. They would have used trade sanctions, or diplomatic pressure, or direct military action. But if they thought we were harmless, they ignored us completely. That gave us time. Time to do what? To discover what humans are naturally good at, Chen said. Turns out, we are very good at void warfare. Something about human psychology and evolution makes us excellent at coordinating in three-dimensional combat. We think differently than most species. We adapt faster. We form social bonds that make our crews more effective. And we are willing to take risks that others consider irrational. Wright pulled up a display showing star maps. In 48 years, humanity has built a fleet of 800 warships. We have fortified our home system with weapons platforms that could hold off an invasion fleet from any major power. We have established hidden supply bases in 20 systems. We have been preparing for the day when we would finally show the galaxy what we really are. And you chose to reveal yourselves for me? Zekthar felt overwhelmed. Why? Because you represent what we hope the galaxy can be, Wright said. Not everyone is like the Kresh. Not everyone judges worth by power alone. You proved that kindness still exists, even in dark places. We decided your story was the perfect way to introduce ourselves. Not as conquerors, not as threats, but as a species that honors its debts and protects its friends. Zekthar looked between Chen and Wright. The Kresh will not accept this. They will see it as humiliation. We know, Wright said. Admiral Wright pulled up more information on the display screen. Star charts showed Kresh Consortium, territory in red, human space in blue, and the neutral zone, where Zekthar's station existed in gray. The red areas were much larger than the blue ones. The Kresh Consortium controls 17 systems, Wright explained. They make most of their money through lending, mining operations, and what they call protection services. Other species would call it extortion. They have been operating like this for over 200 years, and no one stops them because they have powerful allies in the Galactic Council. Zekthar studied the map. If you knew the Kresh would respond badly, why provoke them? You could have bought my debt quietly. Let them save face. Because humanity is tired of being quiet, Chen said. We have been patient for almost 50 years. We have let other species treat us like children. We have watched the strong bully the weak, while the Galactic Council does nothing. It is time to change the rules of this galaxy. Wright nodded. But we needed the right moment, the right situation. If we revealed ourselves by attacking someone, we would look like aggressors. If we revealed ourselves just to show off, we would look like children playing with toys. But defending a good person who helped one of our own when he had nothing to gain? That makes us look like heroes. Rather, action. Public opinion matters in the galaxy, Chen added. More than you might think. Even the Galactic Council has to pretend to care about justice and honor. If we are seen as the good guys, it becomes much harder for our enemies to unite against us. Zekthar felt sick. So I am just a tool? A way for humans to look good while you play political games? No, Wright said firmly. You are a good person who deserves help. That is real. Everything we have done for you is genuine. But we are also pragmatic enough to recognize that helping you also helps our strategic goals. Those two things can both be true at the same time. Before Zekthar could respond, an alarm sounded on Wright's communicator. The Admiral checked it and smiled. Right on schedule. Our intelligence predicted the Kresh would respond within 6 hours. It has been exactly 5 hours and 40 minutes. 1. 1. 1. 1. What is happening? Zekthar asked. Wright pulled up a new display. It showed multiple Kresh vessels gathering at the edge of the nearest consortium-controlled system. Dozens of ships. The Kresh are mobilizing a battle fleet. They are going to demand your surrender and the retreat of human forces. When we refuse, they will attack. Zekthar stood up, his heart's racing. Then you need to leave. Take your ships and go. I am not worth starting a war over. Sit down, Wright said, but his voice was kind. There will not be a war. Not a long one. Anyway. The Kresh are bullies. When bullies are challenged, they either back down or they escalate. We removed their ability to back down by humiliating them publicly. So, they will escalate. They will attack with overwhelming force, expecting us to run away. And when you do not run away? Zekthar already knew the answer. Then they will learn what happens when you threaten humans and our friends. Over the next 3 days, Zekthar lived aboard the ESDF Unity. He was given comfortable quarters and treated as an honored guest. Crew members were polite and curious about Valorian culture. He ate in the officers' mess hall, where the food was surprisingly good. He learned that humans loved variety in their meals and brought thousands of recipes from their home world. But mostly, he watched the preparations for battle. The human fleet was impressive. Each crew member knew their job perfectly. They ran drills constantly, practicing combat scenarios. Zekthar watched fighters launch and return in perfect formation. He saw Marines practicing boarding actions. He observed engineers maintaining weapons systems with care and pride. Commander Chen spent time with him, explaining human military philosophy. Most species in the galaxy fight wars the way they have always fought them, she said. They line up their ships. They exchange fire. Whoever has more ships usually wins. It is predictable and slow. Humans fight differently? We learned warfare in 3 dimensions long before we reached space, Chen explained. Our ocean vessels fought in complex patterns. Our aircraft fought at multiple altitudes simultaneously. When we came to space, we already understood how to think in 3 dimensions. Most species had to learn it from scratch. We fight faster, more aggressively, and we coordinate better than anyone expects. On the 3rd day, the Kresh Consortium fleet arrived. 68 vessels, including battle cruisers and destroyers. They emerged from FTL travel in a massive formation, designed to intimidate. The human fleet consisted of only 12 ships, though 20 more were reportedly on the way. The Kresh broadcast a message on all frequencies. Their commander, a different one from the station, spoke in trade language. Human vessels, you are ordered to surrender Zekthar and depart this sector immediately. You have violated consortium space and threatened consortium operations. This is your only warning. Admiral Wright stood on the bridge of the Unity, calm and composed. Zekthar stood next to him, watching everything. The Admiral opened a channel and responded, Kresh Consortium Fleet, you are threatening a being under Earth's protection. This sector is neutral space, not consortium territory. Stand down and return to your systems. This is your only warning. You are outnumbered more than 5 to 1, the Kresh commander replied. You cannot win this fight. Wright smiled. Cannot? Let me show you what humans can do when you threaten our friends. The Admiral gave an order. The 12 human warships suddenly broke formation. They accelerated in different directions, moving faster than Zekthar thought possible. The Kresh fleet tried to track them but could not adjust quickly enough. What happened next was not really a battle. It was a demonstration. The human ships moved like dancers, like predators, like nothing Zekthar had ever seen. They used the asteroids in the belt as cover. They fired weapons from impossible angles. Their missiles did not fly straight. They curved and dodged, guided by advanced targeting systems. Their energy weapons hit with precision that seemed impossible at such distances. Within 15 minutes, 20 Kresh ships were disabled, not destroyed, disabled. The humans specifically targeted engines and weapons systems, leaving the crew compartments intact. It was surgical, precise, and terrifying. The Kresh tried to adapt. They brought their fleet together in a defensive formation, combining their shields. The humans responded by splitting into smaller groups and attacking from 6 different vectors simultaneously. The Kresh could not defend every direction at once. More ships fell. The human warships did not have a single scratch on their shields. Zekthar watched one particular engagement on the tactical display. A human destroyer was being chased by 3 Kresh battlecruisers. The human ship suddenly reversed its engines, flying backwards while still shooting forward. The maneuver surprised the Kresh completely. The human ship destroyed all 3 pursuers before they could adjust. "How are they doing that?" Zekthar whispered. "Training," Wright said. "Practice. But mostly, it is instinct. Humans have been hunters for millions of years. We understand pursuit, ambush, coordinated attacks. We are very, very good at killing things that threaten us." After 45 minutes, the Kresh fleet was in complete disarray. 40 of their 68 ships were disabled or destroyed. The remaining vessels were trying to retreat, but the human ships were faster. The Kresh commander sent a surrender signal. Wright ordered his fleet to let them go. The damaged Kresh ships were left drifting in space with emergency beacons active. The fleeing vessels ran back to consortium space as fast as their engines could carry them. The battle was over. The humans had not lost a single ship. They had barely taken any damage at all. Wright turned to Zekthar. "This battle is being observed by every major power in the sector. Diplomatic ships, intelligence vessels, trade monitoring stations. They are all watching. By tomorrow, everyone will know what happened here. The message is simple. Humanity is not weak, and we protect our own." Zekthar sat down heavily. "What happens now?" "Now comes the complicated part," Wright said. "The Galactic Council will demand an inquiry. The Kresh will want revenge, but will be too scared to try direct military action. Other species will reassess their relationships with humanity. Some will be afraid of us. Some will want to ally with us. Some will try to test us to see if this was luck or skill." "And me?" Zekthar asked. "What happens to me?" Chen smiled. "That depends on what you want, Zekthar. You could go back to your trading station. We will make sure the Kresh never bother you again. Or, you could consider another option." "What option?" Wright pulled up a document on his display. "Earth needs representatives in this sector. People who understand the local species and trade routes. People who have proven themselves to be honorable. We would like to offer you a position as Earth's official trade liaison. You would coordinate commercial relationships between human businesses and local traders." Zekthar stared at the document. It showed a salary that was 10 times what he made as an independent trader. It showed protections, benefits, and most importantly, a guarantee of safety for his family. "Why would you trust me with this?" he asked. "Because you helped Commander Chen when it cost you everything and gained you nothing," Wright said. "That tells us everything we need to know about your character. So what do you say? Will you work with us?" Zekthar thought about his family on Valoria. He thought about his struggling business and his small trading post. He thought about the Kresh commander's face when the human fleet arrived. He thought about everything that had happened since he pulled one damaged scout ship into his docking bay. "I will need to discuss this with my family," Zekthar said. "Of course," Chen said. "Take all the time you need. Though I should mention that Earth is sending a diplomatic mission to Valoria next week. Your family will be under our protection regardless of your decision. The Kresh have already sent threats against them. We are not allowing that to stand. You would protect my family even if I say no?" "Yes," Wright said simply, "because that is what friends do." Zekthar felt something break inside his chest. Emotions he had been holding back for days finally flooded through him. He put his face in his hands and cried. Humans, he had learned, did not consider crying to be shameful. Chen put a hand on his shoulder and just let him process everything. When he finally stopped, he looked up at the two humans. "I accept your offer. I will work for Earth." Wright extended his hand again. "Welcome aboard, Ambassador Zekthar." "Ambassador? That is your official title," Chen explained. "Earth's first ambassador of commerce for the Outer Rim sector. It is a real position with real authority. You will report directly to Earth's High Council. You will have an office, a staff, and a diplomatic vessel of your own." Zekthar shook Wright's hand, feeling the weight of responsibility settle onto his shoulders. He had helped one human and thought nothing would come of it. Instead, he had somehow changed the balance of power in the entire sector. "What did I do?" he whispered. "You showed kindness to a stranger," Wright said. "Never underestimate how much that can change the galaxy." The weeks following the battle changed everything. News spread across the galaxy faster than light travel. Every species with access to communication networks heard about the human fleet that destroyed a Kresh Consortium battle group without taking damage. Recordings of the fight were analyzed by military experts from dozens of civilizations. Everyone reached the same conclusion. Humanity had been hiding something very significant. The Galactic Council demanded an emergency session. Earth sent a delegation that included Admiral Wright, several diplomats, and surprisingly, Zekthar. The council chambers were located on a neutral station called Unity Point, a massive structure that housed representatives from over 200 species. Zekthar had never been to Unity Point before. He could not afford the travel fees or the documentation costs. Now he walked through its corridors as an official Earth ambassador, wearing formal robes that combined human and Valorian designs. Some with curiosity, some with contempt, wondering why this nobody from a minor species was standing with the humans. The council session was intense. The Kresh Consortium representative accused humanity of unprovoked aggression and demanded reparations. Several allied species supported the complaint. They argued that humans had violated the established order and could not be trusted with military power. Earth's head diplomat, a woman named Ambassador Katerina Volkov, responded calmly. She presented evidence of Kresh crimes, debt slavery, extortion, illegal weapons trafficking, and dozens of other violations of council law. She pointed out that the council had ignored these crimes for decades because the Kresh had powerful friends. Then, she made humanity's position clear. Earth will no longer tolerate the abuse of the weak by the strong, Volkov said. We will protect our friends and allies, even if they are considered unimportant by this council. If that makes us unpopular, so be it. The session ended without any formal sanctions against Earth. The council could not agree on action because too many species were secretly pleased to see the Kresh humiliated. Some species even approached Earth privately, asking about trade agreements and mutual defense treaties. The galaxy's power structure was shifting, and everyone wanted to be on the right side. But the Kresh Consortium did not accept defeat quietly. They could not directly attack the human fleet again, but they found other ways to strike back. They used their trade connections to block human goods from certain markets. They spread rumors about human treachery and aggression. And most importantly, they began targeting anyone associated with Earth, including Zekthar's people. Valorian merchant ships started having accidents. 3 were destroyed by pirates in neutral space. 2 more disappeared completely. The message was clear. Anyone who worked with humans would suffer consequences. Zekthar received a communication from his homeworld. His family was safe under Earth protection, but other Valorian families were being threatened. The Kresh were putting pressure on the Valorian government to condemn Earth and distance themselves from Zekthar. His own people were beginning to see him as a troublemaker who had brought disaster upon them. I should resign, Zekthar told Admiral Wright during a meeting on the Unity. I am causing problems for my people. The Kresh are hurting Valorians because of me. The Kresh are hurting Valorians because they want to hurt humans and cannot reach us directly, Wright corrected. If you resign, it will not stop. They will find another target. The only way to stop bullies is to make them understand that aggression has consequences they cannot accept. How? You cannot protect every Valorian ship in the galaxy. No, Wright agreed. But we can make the cost of attacking them too high. We are going to end this threat permanently. Over the next week, Earth mobilized the Third Fleet in full. Over 200 warships gathered in neutral space near Kresh territory. It was the largest fleet anyone had seen in decades. The size of it shocked the galaxy. How had humanity built so many warships without anyone noticing? The fleet did not attack immediately. Instead, Admiral Wright sent a message to the Kresh Consortium leadership. The message was broadcast publicly, so everyone could hear it. You have attacked civilian vessels belonging to the Valorian people. These attacks were retaliation for their friendship with humanity. This is unacceptable. You have 48 hours to compensate the families of the dead, repair the damaged ships, and publicly guarantee that no further attacks will occur. If you refuse, Earth will interpret this as a declaration of war, and we will respond accordingly. The Kresh response came 6 hours later. They rejected Earth's demands. They called the accusations false. They threatened that any human military action would bring the entire Kresh Alliance network into the conflict. They were calling what they thought was a bluff. It was not a bluff. The Earth fleet moved in perfect coordination. They did not target civilian areas or population centers. Instead, they systematically dismantled Kresh military infrastructure across 3 systems. They destroyed weapons platforms, military shipyards, and command stations. They disabled the Kresh fleet, wherever they found it, leaving the crews alive in escape pods, but destroying the vessels themselves. The campaign lasted 4 days. By the end, the Kresh Consortium had lost 60% of their military capability. Earth forces had precise intelligence about every military installation. Later, it would be revealed that human intelligence officers had been operating in Kresh space for years, gathering information while everyone thought humans were harmless. On the 5th day, the Kresh Consortium surrendered unconditionally. Their leadership agreed to every demand Earth made. They would compensate victims, guarantee safe passage for Valorian merchants, and most importantly, they would submit to Galactic Council oversight of their lending practices. The age of the Kresh operating as lawless bullies was over. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. A species that had been considered weak and primitive had just defeated one of the sector's major powers in less than a week. Other aggressive factions began reconsidering their own activities. The rules were changing. 2 weeks after the Kresh surrender, Zekthar received a message asking him to return to Valoria. His homeworld wanted him to attend a special ceremony. He was nervous about going back. Would his people see him as a hero, or as someone who had brought war to their doorstep? The Earth fleet provided an escort. 6 warships accompanied Zekthar's diplomatic vessel to Valoria. When they arrived, Zekthar was shocked to see thousands of Valorians gathered at the main spaceport. They were cheering. The Valorian government had declared a planetary holiday. Zekthar was honored as the person who had brought them under Earth's protection. For the first time in their history, Valorians did not have to fear the Kresh or other predatory powers. They had powerful allies who actually cared about defending them. Zekthar's family was there. His wife, his children, his elderly parents. They embraced him with joy and relief. His children had been afraid they would never see him again. His wife had cried every night, worrying about what the Kresh might do. Now, they were safe, and their people were safe, all because Zekthar had helped one human pilot. The ceremony was held in the planetary capital. Government leaders gave speeches about friendship and alliance. Cultural performances celebrated Valorian history and their new partnership with Earth. And at the center of it all, Admiral Wright presented Zekthar with an official document. "Ambassador Zekthar," Wright said in front of thousands of witnesses and cameras broadcasting to the entire planet, On behalf of Earth and all humanity, I present you with this declaration. You are hereby recognized as the first friend of humanity, a title that carries diplomatic immunity, permanent protection for you and your family, and a voice in Earth's High Council for matters affecting this sector. Zekthar accepted the document with shaking hands. The crowd erupted in cheers. But Wright was not finished. Additionally, Earth is establishing a permanent defense presence in this system. The Third Fleet's 4th Battle Group will be stationed here to protect Valoria and its people. Any attack on Valorian interests will be considered an attack on Earth. Zekthar looked up at the sky. Through the atmosphere, he could see lights. The Earth Fleet, over 60 warships, hung in orbit around his homeworld. They were arranged in a precise pattern that formed a protective sphere. It was the most beautiful and terrifying thing he had ever seen. Why? He whispered to Wright. Why do all this? I helped one pilot. That is all. Wright smiled. Because that one act of kindness said everything about who you are and who your people are. You helped when it cost you everything. You asked for nothing in return. That is the kind of character we want in our allies. That is the kind of person we want representing us to the galaxy. Commander Chen stepped forward. She had been promoted to captain, and now commanded her own ship. Humans have a long memory, Zekthar. We remember every kindness shown to us, especially when we were weak and alone. We remember who treated us with dignity when others treated us with contempt. And we pay our debts. Over the following months, Zekthar settled into his role as Earth's ambassador. He coordinated trade agreements between human companies and local businesses. He helped negotiate mutual defense treaties. He worked with other species who were interested in allying with humanity, but were afraid of the dramatic changes happening in the galaxy. His family thrived. His children attended schools with the best education available, partly funded by Earth programs. His wife started a cultural exchange program that taught humans about Valorian art and traditions. His parents lived comfortably, no longer worried about credits or debt collectors. But the most significant change was not personal. It was civilizational. Other weak species saw what had happened to Valoria and wanted the same protection. They approached Earth, asking for friendship and alliance. Humanity did not accept everyone. They carefully chose species that shared their values of honor, kindness, and mutual support. A new power block was forming in the galaxy. Not based on military conquest or economic exploitation, but on genuine friendship and mutual defense. Species that had been pushed around by the major powers suddenly had someone willing to stand up for them. The balance of power was shifting away from bullies and toward those who valued cooperation. The Galactic Council held an emergency session to address the human problem. Many established powers were angry about the changes. They had profited from the old system, where the strong could exploit the weak without consequences. But they could not agree on how to respond to Earth. Some wanted sanctions. Some wanted military action. Some wanted to simply accept the new reality. In the end, the Council did nothing. They could not act because too many species supported what humanity was doing. The weak and oppressed outnumbered the powerful. If it came to a vote, Earth would have more allies than enemies. 1 year after Zekthar pulled Commander Chen's damaged ship into his docking bay, he stood on the bridge of his own diplomatic vessel. It was a gift from Earth. A fast ship with comfortable quarters and enough defensive capabilities to escape most threats. He was traveling to Unity Point for another council session, this time to present a formal alliance treaty between Earth and 15 other species. He thought about everything that had changed. One small act of kindness had cascaded into a transformation of galactic politics. He had saved one life, and in return, he had received the protection of an armada. His people were safe, his family was prosperous, and he had become an important figure in the galaxy's future. Commander Chen, now Captain Chen, was piloting his diplomatic vessel. She looked back at him from the pilot's seat and smiled. Ready for another council session? They are not going to like this new treaty. Let them be angry, Zekthar said. They had centuries to create a just galaxy, and they chose not to. Now, someone else is doing it for them. That is the spirit. Chen laughed. You are starting to think like a human. Chen, well v. Chen, well v. Chen laughed. Is that a compliment or an insult? With us, it is always a compliment. As they approached Unity Point, Zekthar saw other ships gathering. Valorian vessels, yes, but also ships from a dozen other species. All of them flew both their own flags and the Earth symbol. All of them were part of the new alliance. All of them had been inspired by the story of one merchant who showed kindness to a stranger. Zekthar remembered the Kresh commander's words from that day in his docking bay. You have no friends. No one cares if you live or die. He smiled. The commander had been wrong. Kindness created friends. Honor created allies. And when you helped someone who had nothing, they remembered. They remembered, and they made sure you never stood alone again. The galaxy was changing. The old rules were breaking. And at the center of it all was one simple truth that Zekthar had learned well. Humans remember kindness, and they pay their debts in full. He looked at the Earth Armada maintaining formation around his vessel as they docked. 60 warships providing escort to one diplomatic ship. It was excessive, protective, and beautiful. It was humanity saying, you are one of ours, and we protect our own. Loth tax time, and that made all the difference.